untimely death, and one of my beliefs as far as the paranormal is concerned is that when you do have a death that is unexpected, that is most likely what will cause activity and spirits to come back, because you don't even realize that they've actually passed on.
Understood. That makes a lot of sense. Listen, you were the third paranormal ghost hunter type that's been a guest on our show now. We had the famous Carol Kadrolsha, KO. She was fantastic. I also had a friend, a personal friend of mine, that used to head a chapter in Lakeland, Florida, and he actually is a fan of yours. He was very familiar when I told him a couple of days ago that you were booked to come on the show. He goes, "Oh, I know him. Oh, I've followed him. I've been on his website, all that stuff." So you're doing something right, that's for sure. He actually
You've been doing it long enough, though.
Yeah, since 1994, right?
Something right.
Yeah. So what I understand is World Paranormal Investigations. It's an LLC. You guys have been around since 1994. I know that you are affiliated with the UK as well as the United States, and you've been all over the planet. Now, how many investigations have you done? Have you done a count?
Well, we actually formed in 2004, July of 2004, and we've actually conducted now, it's hard to keep track, but we think it's been well over 250 investigations.
Wow.
We've done everything from private residences to big businesses. We've done prisons and kind of everything in between, and we've actually investigated not only here in the U.S., but we actually traveled over to the United Kingdom back in 2005 to investigate with our UK team as well.
Very cool. What made you get involved in ghost hunting?
Well, actually, I was quite the skeptic. I met my wife we were actually pen pals, and I was living in Colorado and she was living in Cleveland at the time, and out there in Colorado it was never really, the whole ghost and stuff was never really talked about back then, and my wife had told me that the house that she lived in had a spirit in it, and she had told me this stuff, and obviously this was before we got married. And I was kind of debating whether or not I actually wanted to meet her or if I should run away from her, because I didn't know if she was legit or if she was bat crazy. But, I ended up coming out to meet her family and stuff, and I actually got to spend about a month in the home, and that's when I had my first personal experience with something that I could not explain, and it was just kind of from there that set it off. And I continued to do some investigating with some other smaller groups, and then finally B and I decided to go ahead and venture out and start our own group, and we teamed up with a couple of friends that my wife knew from over in the United Kingdom, and that's how World Paranormal Investigation started.
That's really cool, because a lot of people meet their high school sweetheart at a junior prom, or she's a cheerleader, you're a football player. You guys actually met and talked about, experiences you couldn't explain, and fell in love and stayed together and keep on doing this. That's a pretty cool little story right there. Not to belittle it, but that's a cool story that you don't hear a lot. Can I ask you, a lot of movies show ghosts being really scary. Has anything really scared you?
There hasn't been anything that's truly scared me. I think probably the worst encounter I've ever had is I was scratched across the face. But once again, people would take that as something malicious and evil. But you have to remember, these are spirits, and they don't have necessarily the ways and means to get your attention the way that someone, that is full-bodied here can do. So, if you get scratched, it's simply just basically a spirit, trying to get your attention, and unfortunately sometimes you get scratched or pinched or something like that. But
that would scare the crap out of me.
My wife actually had an experience in the same location that I was scratched, and it scared her enough to where she walked away from the group for about a year and a half. And so there has been stuff that has gotten our attention, to say the least.
Hey, this is Jay Bird. I'd just like to ask, and you know, I have a kind of demented mind, but I'd just like to ask. I've been trying to search for a paranormal, like, sexual relationship that maybe, you know, I could get haunted by, like, a really freaky woman that, you know, just is still out there. Is there anything you could do for me to maybe lead me in the right direction to where I'd find this?
I mean, I don't know how I could possibly help you with that, but I would probably suggest, if you ever have a chance to maybe investigate an old brothel, that might work.
Nice. Yeah. Love it.
He wants to get ghost raped.
You gotta think there's a lot of old ghost towns and stuff out west, and there's got to be some old brothels that are closed down that you might be able to actually get in and investigate, and who knows, you might actually have one of those encounters.
There's one right here in Newport Richey, the oldest building on Main Street. It's been here since like the late 1800s, early 1900s. It used to be a brothel. Now it's an office building. I actually looked into that building for our studio. It was a little too expensive, and there was not an elevator. But I did talk to the owner of the building, and he said it used to be a brothel back then. I wonder, and you know, I don't know if that's haunted or not. I looked around in Newport Richey to see what was haunted and what wasn't and stuff. And I know one of these buildings, I know the theater on Main Street is reportedly, haunted. I wonder if that building is haunted, bro. You know? Who knows, dude? Maybe get lucky. Jay's so desperate right now for some action that he's willing to go to a ghost town brothel and what do you look?
Yes, I am. I'm ready.
All right, so
now you never know though, because even though it's a brothel, you might have found, you might end up coming in encounters with the guy that might have swung that way back then. So, I mean, it's on you, brother. I can't help you there.
Literally on you, yeah. Hey, John, have you ever had a ghost follow you? You know, have you ever been possessed or felt like something's, that you've taken something home with you?
Well, I am a spiritual medium. And unlike what you see on some of these TV shows, to where these people walk into these rooms, and every room they walk into, they're having an encounter with the spirit, and they're talking about this spirit and that spirit. It's not really like that. When a spirit does want to communicate with you, and if you have the ability, you can pick up on stuff. And I have picked up on names, dates, images, and stuff like that I've been able to report back and have had it confirmed of who I was picking up on. So I have had those types of encounters, and a spirit will kind of, I guess you could say, you can let a spirit kind of talk through you. It doesn't happen very often, and you have to kind of open yourself up to it. But once again, it's not like what you see on some of these TV shows, to where the guys are pretty much walking around like they're possessed and this and that. I think that Hollywood has made it way, way overboard what it's truly not. But yes, to answer your question as far as being followed home, one of our first investigations that we did, we brought what we believe to be the spirit of a little girl home with us, and she had stayed there. And then when we had moved from our old home and we bought the new home that we're in now, she did not come along with us for whatever reason.
That's some freaky crap right there. It really is. Hey, Pops.
Yeah.
I didn't truly believe it. We had taken our youngest son with us that night, and he kept telling B, take a picture in those bushes over there. She's over there in those bushes. And we thought it was just a child's over imagination, and this and that. But he kept insisting that she was over there, and he's like, you got to take a picture before she leaves. Well, B ended up taking a picture, and at the time, this was before we had a digital camera, and we were still using, 35 millimeter cameras. we had taken the picture, but we didn't know, that we had captured anything yet. And was walking back to the car, and our son kept saying, she's following us, she's following us. And once again, we thought, kid, wild imagination, this and that. So we were like, she wants to come home with us, that's fine. There's enough room for her to, yada, yada, yada. And that night, I had went to bed, and I had laid down in bed. And as soon as I laid down in bed, I hadn't even remotely fallen asleep yet, but I had started feeling these kind of heebie-jeebies, like I was being watched. And I just got this really uneasy feeling. And I had rolled over, and when I had rolled over, for a split second, I had seen the image of a little girl standing there. And she had flowers in her hair, and she had like a little dress on, and the best way to describe it was she looked like someone you would see on like Little House on the Prairie, but as soon as I seen her, she was gone.
John.
It was just like yeah.
John, you say you're a medium?
Yes.
Do you have a spiritual guide that comes to you when you need him?
No.
Oh, you don't? Because I attended a spiritualist church for a year here in Newport Richey back in 1979. Not quite a year. But anyhow, there was a gal there who was a medium, and she had a guide that would come to her as she needed him. And she did some in a 6-month period. She did some spiritual stuff with me and my ex-wife and 4 or 5 of my friends that convinced me that she had something working, But she had this guide that would come to her on demand, so to speak. But that's why I was curious. But you've been a medium with a bunch of different spirits. Is that what you want to tell us?
Well, I mean, like with me, like I said, I go into a location. I've been into locations that's had activity, and we've been able to pick up activity on equipment, but I haven't been able to pick up anything like a connection with the spirit. And, there was one particular location that we were called out to, a private residence, and the lady that owned the home now, she had a neighbor lady come over and sit in on the investigation and watch everything. And when I had walked in there, I had started picking up different feelings. I had described this person, and I kept getting this name in my head, and I was seeing like Marge or Marjorie or something like that. And I said, I can see the name, and I described what she looked like. And the neighbor had confirmed that the lady that lived there, her name was Margaret. And I kept walking into this walk-in closet that was there, and every time I would walk into the closet, I would get a very uneasy, almost like disoriented feeling. And if I would step out of the closet, I would feel fine. I would walk back in, got the same feeling. And I told the homeowner, I said, I don't understand why I'm feeling this. I said, but this is what I'm picking up on. Come to find out that before the new people had moved in, when Margaret and her husband was living there, that walk-in closet was never there. That was an open area, and there was a window that looked out, and Margaret would go to that window every day and talk to her neighbor through the window. And it was almost like the disorientation was Margaret coming through me, wondering, where the window was, why this particular room was now here that wasn't there before.
John.
And I think what it was is that she had passed away, and she was waiting around looking for her husband, and that's what she was waiting for.
I couldn't wish that on my worst enemy. If I watch a horror flick, whether it's an oldie and a goodie, or if it's something new like Insidious or Insidious 2 or whatever you might see nowadays, and I look at the ceiling fan when I'm laying in bed, and I see that demon with the red face spinning around, I just, oh man, I couldn't imagine what it would be like to actually have the feelings and the things that you guys go through on a daily basis. And WPI is a big thing right now. And again, everybody, we're talking to John Brugge. Is it Brugge? Is that how you pronounce your last name?
Brugge.
Brugge, okay. Yeah, I didn't want to murder it, So John Brugge, yeah, it's World Paranormal Investigations LLC. It's what is it? WPI